See that you're born an Italian if you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.
How about some Delle?
That's a nice.
Paisani, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian American Podcast. I'm John Viola, along with the notorious P.O.B., Patrick O'Boyle, the Italian American Wikipedia. We are coming to you from the heart of Little Italy, Mulberry and Grand, here at Red Sauce Studio. We are days away from the Festa, delle Tutte Feste, the feast of all feasts.
The cataclysm.
The cataclysm arriving on us. Traffic is very bad. The time of year that Mulberry and Grand really becomes the center of the universe, at least here in New York and the Italian community here. San Gennaro is coming up. We are really days away, and we have guests with us today.
I want to first take issue with a comment you made before we went on air.
Oh, no. What did I say?
You told me to be positive.
Yes, I tried to encourage you to be positive.
Antonologically change who I am.
I know, it's not much I could do to help.
Why would I want to, at this stage of my life,
at this
49, become positive?
You just can't.
I can't. I wouldn't be me.
No, you wouldn't be you. That's true.
I have to be me.
I want to talk about what makes you you. Because we have guests here today, I want to say, I've met one of the two brothers at the feast, Jimmy. Jimmy, we've interacted here at San Gennaro because you come in. Right, it's the first time we're meeting, I believe. These two guys came all the way from Boston with their sister.
Brothers.
Two brothers and sister, all the way down from Boston to be here today. They're going to be here for the feast. They are feast experts, particularly in Boston, which is a great feast town, as you've heard Pat say for all of the years we've been doing this. But interestingly enough, we were just talking about their Irish and Italian roots because their surname is Gainey and often get questioned about where the Italian passion comes from. Obviously, their Sicilian side, Bono. But you can commiserate as an Irish last name on a very, very Italian person. And I often wonder, you get so aggravated by our community. How do you do this to yourself? Because you have an out. I have no out.
Every level you're aggravated.
Yes.
We just had this conversation.
Yeah.
We have two Italian organizations who have booked an event at the same time.
Yes, unfortunately.
So that John and I, unless we bilocate like Padre Pio, we can't go to both.
No.
So John, why was I told I was negative? John is trying to tell me here, because you are the happy person. Who was it, Jiminy
Becoming
Cricket?
less happy, yes.
Who was the happy? You're like Jiminy, what was his name?
I got a very family story about Jiminy Cricket. Yes, that's
You're
what
Jiminy
everybody
Cricket,
called me my whole
happy.
life. Yeah.
And John's like, oh, it's just a coincidence. I'm like, no, it's not.
That's so weird.
The other organization is purposely honoring people simultaneously, so we can't go to both.
You think it's Italian American Heritage Month. There's only 4 potential Saturdays, maybe 5. You just like it just could be a coincidence that people book on the same day?
Coincidence. Because there are no coincidences with God or Italian people. Italian people think everything out. People understand that. Italian people think, maybe not, but on people more, every single step. So when they play stupid, they're not really stupid. That's when they're really going for the kill.
That's very interesting.
They're like, oh, I don't understand. So if you ask the organizers of the group that's now moved into the competing time, they're going to play stupid, and that's the kiss of death. So if they say to you, no, we booked at the same time because we got a better deal, that means they want to screw the other organization, but they have a better cover story. But if they play, ooh, I didn't know, that's absolutely.
It's really the kiss of death.
That is the complete one. You know when you take a test, you spit into the tube with DNA? That's the 100% DNA of maligna, of hatefulness, evil, whatever the thing is. 100%.
So what draws you? I mean, you have an out. You guys all, right? You could be, you could celebrate being Irish, ignore all this stuff. I'm just curious.
Nuh-uh.
I have no escape path, and I think about that often. I think
Irish
sometimes
people think I'm strange.
They do.
Because I don't drink.
Oh, that's probably true.
And that's like the kiss you can't join the club. I don't care what anybody says out there. I got the passport. You can't join the club.
Do you guys relate the same to being Irish as Italian?
Yeah, there are many days in which I'm glad I'm half Irish, and many days I'm glad I'm half Italian.
I understand Italians better because I'm half Irish.
Interesting.
Because I can see how the other half would think. So where the Irish are trained from day one to row together. Don't step out of, like, you can get drunk and hammered, but when we get in the boat, we all have to row together. And nobody's too good not to row. Even if you're the captain, you have to row harder to prove that you're not. The Italian's the complete opposite. I'm the captain. I will never row. That
Exactly right.
my gloves are made out of silk.
Some are rowing this way, the others are rowing
Yeah,
that
they
way.
row that way. And who do you think? Who you think?
Who's on strike?
come
How
on.
dare you ask me to row? Yeah.
The Irish mentality is more. Yes, and to get back to the event, Irish people would never book the event of the same. Never, because they would cancel their event. That would get you points in Irish meeting. We're going to cancel our event and move it, not to conflict with you, because that's the ultimate sign of cooperation.
Yeah.
Because if you have an English landlord, he wants. So if you have two farmers that hate each other, right? They're united, Irish farmers, because that English landlord wanted the two of you dead, so he could move in his Protestant planted there from Scotland and take over your land. The Italian would have worked with the landlord to kill the other farmer.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So let's get together and I'll take half the land. And you that's why we never had word about Turks. I mean, the Turks came in and were like, well, that's where the gate to the other town is. Like, don't worry. Don't rape and pillage our town.
Yeah.
Right? But if
Go
you
next
go
door.
down, our enemy across the valley, they always keep that gate open. But we didn't tell you that. We never needed outside enemies. Italy,
true.
well, the south of Italy. Because
Yeah.
the north of Italy had borders.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the south of Italy had the Papal States, which was innocuous.
Yeah, sure.
Right? And then you had a lot of water. Right?
Yeah.
So we had like Turks and Saracens coming. The north of Italy, to their credit, they had the Venetian and the Austrians to worry about, and
Yeah.
the French wars.
And there was a
coming
lot
in
of
and-
inter-Italian
and
fighting.
city-state
Yeah.
fighting, but the South was controlled by the monarchy. Right?
Yeah.
You had multiple ones, but like dogs have that need to, your puppy has to like chew on things. The Italian need to start trouble was always inside. It's like a pressure
I
can.
guess I could. Is it the same way in Boston? You guys struggle because Boston's such an organized little Italy. The North End, it's so authentic and vibrant, and
It's organized chaos. We make it look organized, but it's really a bit chaotic.
is it a get along community?
For the most part, I mean, as far as the feasts go,
Yeah.
we all cooperate with each other because Boston's being supported by outsiders now. For the most part, the Italians moved out of the North End. We like to say, the way the apartments, it was all under rent control at one time, so the Italians could stay in the area. The Italians and the Sicilians, they moved out into the suburbs, and a new phase of people came in. A lot wealthier. They weren't on rent control. They were paying astronomical prices for these apartments that they were renting, but it was a safe, nice neighborhood, and it had an Italian flavor to it. There were plenty of restaurants in the North End. So the feasts really needed each other at that point. Was there rivalry between feasts? There's always a bit of rivalry. That's only natural when you're putting on a display for people. You want yours to be the best.
Sure.
And I always said I didn't want the Fisherman's Feast to be the biggest. I wanted it to be the best, and hopefully we accomplished that. The transition into the North End, though, it keeps moving along. The people tend to accept the feast now. They want to be part of it, a lot of them. And we call them yuppies, but they really...
Hipsters,
they love the neighborhood so much that it's blossomed into a thing that they want to join the society. In many cases, they can't.
They can't, right?
But they still feel a part of the neighborhood now. And so they blended in. We get along with most people in the neighborhood. Sometimes when we had all Italians, it was harder,
Probably true. Yeah.
If you put the lights in front of one building and you didn't put them in front of another person's house, they'd get mad and
Of course.
they'd close their doors to the feast, and it was their feast.
Of course.
So sometimes, Italians tend to be a little temperamental.
Yeah, a little watering down with other ethnicities helps sometimes. You mentioned the feasts, plural, right? Obviously, the Fisherman's Feast, we're going to talk about. You guys were...
We came and filmed.
Right. You
did
just
the
went up there.
postcard,
Yeah,
right.
which, again, I missed another... it's been a very bad summer for me, missing stuff. Obviously, you have St. Anthony's in Boston, San Gennaro. How many feasts are there in and around the North End?
When we were kids, there were a lot more.
Really?
Because they were all... The festivals themselves would be a 3-day festival. They'd start in June. You'd have Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which stopped a long time ago. We had
St. Rocco.
We had 2 St. Roccos, actually.
Wow.
One was from, they were the Villanese doing St. Rocco's Feast. And
San Socio de Baroni, I think
Yeah,
the name of
in
the
Avellino.
paese is.
No,
in Avellino, and the other one's from Foggia.
And they had competing feasts.
No, there's no competition.
Not competing.
We used to, in fact, our procession used to bump into St. Rocco's on the same day.
Really?
Yeah.
We had two
I remember that
processions
as a
on the
little
same
kid.
day.
And I'll tell you, the North End was so Italian back then in the day. Of course, as a little kid, you're looking up.
Yeah.
But I thought I was in Italy
Yeah.
back then. It was amazing. And it was such a beautiful thing back then. All you heard was Italian in the streets.
That's amazing.
Just like here. I hear the same great stories of people reminiscing in this particular neighborhood as I do in the North End. And this neighborhood here gets a bad rap outside this neighborhood because people will say, oh, there's nothing there. Well, it's not about nothing being here. It's what it was.
Yeah.
It will always be the Mecca, and you'll see that at San Gennaro's Feast.
Yeah.
That people will come back. Of course, today in 2024, it's a kind of like a multi-ethnic festival, so to speak, in regards to the foods and so forth. But still in all, it's Italians still getting together and, camaraderie and so forth, and it's great.
I often think that the San Gennaro Feast nowadays sort of feels, and it's kind of like you're describing, maybe not the neighborhood here, because it's a weird neighborhood. It's changed so much,
Yeah.
and Chinatown borders, this and that. But I feel like San Gennaro Feast belongs to the entire city of New York, right? It's like
sure.
It's a staple on the calendar more than other ethnic or religious feasts are. I think I'm obviously St. Patrick's Day. And people come from all over the city or New Jersey or Connecticut, or they just come to the feast. Yes, the Italian flair is a draw, but it's just about the feast.
It's a last throwback.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that what ended in the 1980s of a native autochthonous New York blue collar Catholic,
Yeah.
right? That came from a European country.
Yes.
That flavor of New York, the Cardinal Spellman's New York.
Yeah.
Like the 1930s and 1950s. Like St. Patrick's Day, that's probably the last two, I don't want to say reference points, the last two kind of, I don't want to even say bellwether, the last kind of like
Touchstones.
touchstones of that time. Like
yeah.
you take like in New York, right? Evacuation Day is gone,
Yeah.
right? So what's Thanksgiving now, around that same week, was the commemoration of the last British occupiers who left Manhattan, left downtown.
At the end of the
At the end of the
Revolution.
American Revolution. And that was a real holiday in New York. That was a holiday in Brooklyn into the 20s, where the kids got
Wow.
off of school. And the big
Wow.
parade in New York was the Evacuation Day parade. And then Thanksgiving comes, which Macy's turns into a commercial with the parade. And now Evacuation Day is completely forgotten, right? But the Evacuation Day was a cultural reminder of the colonial people in New York who are gone now. You know, the Dutch speakers and that generation. And I think that so many institutions in New York are gone.
Yeah.
Like the places that produce things like egg creams.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Oh,
gone,
yeah.
and all that is gone.
Brooklyn
Maybe
Acres,
Cats
yeah.
for the Jews, like the delis.
Yeah, I remember
Cats delis.
Pat,
know,
do you
like-
remember Moishes over
Oh,
here?
Moishes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
still there.
Is it still there?
Still there.
Wow.
The Knishes,
Yeah,
that's
the-
probably.
I got my
Knish and Russ
First
and
egg
Daughters.
cream.
A few
Do you know that in
places.
Boston they don't know what an egg cream is?
I believe that.
A
Yeah.
Brooklyn egg cream.
Yeah, that's
Manhattan
us.
Special. They don't know what that is. I only know these
Kills
things
me.
because of spending so much time here.
Yeah, you're like an honorary citizen
Yeah.
of Little Italy. Tell everybody how you ended up becoming so involved here.
Well, it's funny because back in the 70s, I had this great love for everything Italian American. First of all, being half Irish, being
called
half
mental illness.
Sicilian.
I got the same thing. They got pills for that.
We
now.
gravitate.
That can fix
Yeah,
us.
the pills are red, white, and green though, and we gravitate toward that side.
Yeah.
I mean, I love my Irish half, but I just feel that the Italian culture is so much more colorful.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's and then myself being
It's
in
a
the
different brain.
yeah,
And I feel like to defend the Irish, I'm bilingual in the sense that the way there was, let me just say this, I know you go back, like, there was perfumes that came out in the 90s. And they had there was one company made, it was called like Italian Princess and Jewish Princess and Polish Princess. And they made Irish Princess and it totally flopped. And the reason why it flopped is to call an Irish girl a princess, I mean, the Irish don't like royalty to begin with.
Right.
But that was the wrong. It's
Yeah.
just cultural different, and
It's
I
an
think
insult.
that it's an insult. Yeah, and I just think that it's a different brain. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a different brain.
Fair enough.
It's not an eating brain. I have an eating brain, not a drinking brain. That is a completely lost
that
on
too.
them.
But Sicilians, and and Irish, as far as I can see, there's so many similarities too. Though
It's a great book about that, you know.
there are a lot of similarities. I can remember my Irish grandmother. She was devout Catholic, never drank a day in her life. I never saw her drink anything other than tea.
Right, yeah.
I remember talking to her one time, and she would say, there's a lot of differences. You have a different language, and your mother's mother speaks Italian, And I said, well, she speaks Sicilian. That was her, her language, and that was my mother's first language. And I said, we called my Irish grandmother Nana. So I said, Nana, the only difference with my mother's name and an Irish name is the O is at the end of the name, not the beginning,
It's true.
And I said, there's so many similarities, and it's all faith related too.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it is faith.
But
The Irish are very, very superstitious.
Yeah, the Irish I don't know if the Irish Americans are, but the Irish in Ireland are.
Yeah, well,
the fairy trees and stuff like that the Irish Americans don't know about. Like, there's trees in Ireland nobody will cut down.
Oh yeah,
Really?
You do not cut down. You don't mess with fairy stuff.
Yeah,
they have
my
this
Irish
concept of
grandmother
a
was
fairy.
very superstitious for certain things. Yeah.
Wow.
Americans take fairies like, what was her name? Tinkerbell?
Yeah.
They're not. That's not and fairies in Ireland are like, I guess spirit. I don't know what you would call them.
Yeah.
They're like spiritual. There's like fairy hills and stuff. You don't touch fairy trees. You do not mess with.
Oh yeah. If the first thing the Irish will tell you, if you're in a room with someone who dies, did you open the window?
Wow.
You know why?
I'll let the spirit out.
There's a lot
man.
of stuff in Ireland, but I think what happened was when the Irish came here, the Irish were poorly catechized, right? Because if you take the first group that came here with the famine, the Catholic Church was barely tolerated. It was barely legal and barely tolerated.
Right.
Right, from like 1829 to like about 1859. So you got the sacraments when you could, and Father tried to function the best that he could. But Ireland didn't have a school system because the school system came. England was pushing for a public school system in Ireland, and the Irish, especially in the West, fought tooth and nail because they said they're going to use this to make our kids speak English and become Protestants. So, in a true Irish fashion, So that's why they had hedge schools. They would teach kids out in the fields with tutors, but they weren't well catechized. So when the Irish came here, the Catholic hierarchy was, we can start from scratch. So a lot of that superstitiousness and stuff that was in Ireland was the Irish were not as religious during the famine time to when they came to America. Not, I'm going to say religious in practice. It just wasn't. It's like being in a communist country, being in Poland in the 1980s.
Right. The church is suppressed.
It's suppressed. So I think that when they came here, the Irish religious try to iron out the stuff like the superstition and stuff because in Ireland, a seventh son, if you had like the seventh son was supposed to have healing powers. There's a lot of stuff you'd be surprised. The Irish Americans wouldn't know, but that stuff all lasted. Yeah, I would say well into.
I do think there was a book in the 80s.
The late 20th century.
Somebody wrote it in the 80s, a book about how similar Sicilians in particular and Irish were. And I think, if I remember, the idea was, you have an island nation with an occupying power and all this and that and the other thing. And it is true, if I, as an outsider, I grew up around all Irish people, the town I lived in, we were the only Italians. And there's a shared sort of stoicism about Sicilians and Irish that I think is like, the Neapolitans certainly don't have. Like, the Neapolitans will live their frustration out in the street and be screaming. And it's like the Sicilian would never let you know there's a problem. That's at least how I grew up in my family. It was like, the only...
You dealt with it in the house.
You dealt with it in the house, right? And like you went outside with figura and that wouldn't crack if they were beating you up, but you couldn't let that crack. And I think that that's a shared thing.
You have Sicilians, what I find Sicilians have in common with Irish are you're much more respectful of authority and command. Neapolitans think they are all the authority.
Yeah.
Everybody in Campania thinks I am the authority.
That's so true.
That's why Neapolitans hate rules.
And
they believe in
feasts
rules.
do particularly well because of that too.
Oh yeah, because
in America,
my friend married into a very, very Sicilian family, and he said to me, I said, "What was the biggest shock culturally?" And he goes, "The command structure. Like a Neapolitan, there is deference in any Italian family for the older siblings and the older cousins, but he felt that they did not have the command that the older people did in the Sicilian family. The smack the table, no, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think you got that from, you were two occupied islands with an occupier from a different religion who tried to convert you.
Yeah, True.
So Naples always had occupiers that were of the same religion.
Yeah.
And wound up becoming Neapolitanized. Naples converted you. You didn't convert Naples.
Right.
Like you went in to do something. I think the best example is the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah. It died at Naples.
Well, in Naples, they condemned all these people to death because the Spanish occupied. They just never executed anyone. They're like, you deserve to die, but I'm not going to kill you. Let's have lunch, right? Where Sicily would have killed you.
Yeah.
Sicily would have said, "This is what the rule." I find Sicilians have a more
That's interesting.
It's still the rule without the Inquisition.
Yeah, it's true.
in Naples. They're not going to kill you. Naples going to have one. Yeah, that's.
But we started talking about this because you were saying you have this passion for being Italian.
Yeah,
It brought you to Little Italy. I want to understand
yes,
why you became a local Little Italy New Yorker.
I remember going to a nightclub with a friend of mine in Boston, and I said, "Let's go to New York," you know. So we came over here. We took a red eye, a Greyhound red eye, and we arrived at the Port Authority the next morning.
What year is this about?
This is about like 1978, 79.
Very
they were
different
fun
city.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
How wide were
the
those
big-
lapels?
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
whole. Oh yeah, it was right out of Saturday Night Fever, you know, and so we took my friend, by the way, was Irish, 100% Irish, but we arrived at the Port Authority. I had no idea the structure of Manhattan or anything like that, and I remember getting out of the bus at the Port Authority on 42nd Street and asking a couple of young policemen, where is Little Italy? They said, oh, it's downtown. I said, can we walk there? You know, from 42nd Street. They looked and they laughed. They said, we're not stopping you. Go ahead. And we did.
Wow.
You know,
Good walk.
back then we were in great shape and the whole bit. In my 20s. So came down here, and I want to bring you guys back to the neighborhood that I stumbled upon. And my friend couldn't care less because he was 100% Irish. I was 50% Irish, but my heart was 100% Italian. Okay? And I want to see Little Italy. And the Little Italy that I came to was very reminiscent to the North End. In the North End, you were a little apprehensive to go from the outside into the North End because you'd get cracked by the locals. And the same thing was over here. When we found our way over here to Mulberry Street, there was all gangs of kids on each corner. And they were eyeing us. You didn't go in other people's neighborhoods, you know?
That's true, yeah.
The same thing runs true for other ethnicities, too. A lot of great Irish neighborhoods in Boston you stayed out of, and so on and so forth. So we're walking, and my friend is, like, freaking out. He's like, we're going to get killed over here. I said, no, we'll be all right. Don't worry. And, and that could happen in the North End, too, because we weren't. My mother was from the North End. We weren't. We're from the suburb Medford, which was like an annex of the North End. But nevertheless, you had to have a name in which you could say, my uncle is Bogash,
Right.
my uncle is so-and-so, my cousin is so-and-so. Then you'd be okay with the locals, you know. So we came over here, and it was getting a little hairy, like, you know, there's a lot of gangs looking at us, eyeing us, who we were. So I went in Rossi's across the street, and Ernie was my first friend in this neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just great getting to know Ernie, and being in the music business. I produced the Italian feast songs by the Roma Band of Boston. And I brought it over to Ernie, and he took it on consignment, and a great friendship ensued from that point on. And then I just got to know the locals over here, and would just keep coming here, and I enjoy the different Neapolitan cuisine that differed a little bit from Boston, and you could get things here, and the same things, but they were made differently, that you couldn't get in Boston. So it's just...
Let's talk about that. I want to know what is what are the differences that you were finding? What would you eat here that you couldn't eat there? I want to...
Scungigli.
Well, I brought some... John, I brought
Did not
some
find that in
menus
Boston.
from some restaurants that
All right, let's
don't
look.
even exist
This
anymore.
is why we're on video now. I want to show everybody these. But you say scungilli first thing. You couldn't get scungilli in Boston.
I never
Yeah.
even knew what it was.
Scungilli,
We
you never
came
heard
to our
of it.
cousins in New York, and all of a sudden they bring out scungilli. It was delicious, but
Yeah.
had no idea what
Clams
it was.
aragonata.
Didn't have in Boston?
Well,
We had
some
clams
of the-
casino. We had baked stuff. We can go on for food.
This is what we got. Yeah, this conversation.
This could turn into a food
And-
There's
show.
the number one difference between the Irish and the
There you
Italians. It's
go.
like we can
And
go on
now
for
you
6
wonder why
days.
I
Yeah,
gravitated
of course, yeah.
to this waist size and the Italian ethnicity.
Stomach
It's
pulls
just
you
so
to
much more
Italians.
fun.
It's true.
But Little Italy's in itself. In the North End this past weekend on the Sunday evening, I call it Our Lady of Hanover Street. Hanover Street is our Mulberry Street, and it's just jam-packed with people enjoying the Italian culture. You don't see that in other ethnic communities as much.
No.
Not nearly as much. And it has to do with the passeggiata, too.
Yeah.
In fact, we had the Italian rock star Zucchero was here in Boston this past May, and a friend of mine who was promoting the show along with he's in conjunction with Andrea Bocelli's road manager, and he brought me along to speak Italian to Zucchero because he needed an interpreter and so forth. So after dinner, we were walking Hanover Street, and my friend Al says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "This is called a passeggiata." after dinner. And we walked Hanover Street, and the Italian rock star Zucchero just absolutely loved it and fell in love with the North End.
There's nothing like a passeggiata.
No, absolutely.
Especially in an Italian community. That's one of the things I actually love about the feast is when everything is closed off and it pedestrianizes the streets and you just can kind of walk up. I mean, if you come at the right time and it's not swamped with, people from all over the place, there's nothing better than the outside life, because that is the Italian way, really.
You know what my question is? What did Zucchero eat? What did you guys order?
We had, it's funny because now we did have scungillis and babalucci's and
we could never get a
snails.
babalucci here in New York. No.
He loved the food. He loved it. We had all seafood. We had haddock, pizzaiola.
Wow.
It was really good.
Do you guys have babalucci on menus up by you?
It won't say babalucci's, no.
But they'll have the
snails.
Italian
like
style.
that. Yeah.
Because I could not think, maybe I'm wrong if you're out there and I could not think of a restaurant in New York City where you could get maybe Joseph Avenue U is a Sicilian place.
Maybe
Yeah, probably
that's
over
a
there,
good
maybe,
call,
yeah.
Maybe
But I
Joseph
don't know.
Avenue.
I don't know.
You can buy them in the Bronx.
To cook,
Yeah,
but not on the
Yeah.
menu
No,
to serve.
not on the menu.
Yeah, they're going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed to find that stuff.
I mean, you can't find scungillo anymore in New York. Everywhere you go that it's on the menu, I would say
It's gotten so expensive.
it's gotten so expensive.
Really?
Yeah, that I would say 75%
Vincent's
of
over
the
here.
time.
They specialize
have
in
it.
seafood.
Vincent's
they have it,
has
right? Yeah.
Vincent's
Because I've got it over there, and I got it over. In fact, I had two friends of mine from Boston here. We're here for something. I forget. Perhaps a Yankees game, something. But we were in Angelo's, and the waiter Bruno from years ago, he said, I want my friends to experience scungilli hot, like an arrabbiata,
Sure,
you know, and they loved it. It was
It's the
fantastic.
greatest thing in the world.
Let me tell you,
Oh my God, it was so good.
You just mentioned if you come for Yankees game, so I wasn't gonna be here for recording today. I had a medical thing in the morning, so usually when I get dressed for a show, I'll put on some Italian T-shirt or hat or whatever. But I just threw on my Yankee hat today, and I didn't look at the calendar who was coming. So I this is not an antagonistic in any way that I'm wearing my Yankee hat. Just all
No,
I had.
that's okay. But had I known, I would have brought my Boston
Of course,
Red
yeah, it
Sox
would have been
hat.
fine. Yeah. But we were somewhere in Jersey not long ago. You and I. Oh no, I'm lying to you. I was with my dad and my brother up in Westchester, an old restaurant from the 40s.
Nice.
And they said scungilli on the menu. We ordered it, and they were like, "We don't have it anymore. It's,
Oh,
we
wow.
haven't changed the menu because it's so expensive to
Yeah,
get."
yeah.
But it's Vincent's.
It's conch. There's
Vincent-
people out
it's
there who
conch.
don't know what it is.
Right.
It's
Conch.
conch.
But see, there's the difference with the Italian nationality. You can get conch down in Florida.
Yeah,
You
fried
can get it in the Bahamas. Look what the Italians do with it.
Oh,
They
it's
take the
delicious.
same product and they elevate it.
It's
You know,
delicious.
yeah, it's so good.
I have thought of that. I've been in the Caribbean and thought,
yeah,
this is good.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is
You're not
really
going to
not-
get. Yeah.
You could
It
take
is
it to a whole
stingy.
other level.
I watched your program. First of all, time out. We have to go back here. First of all, I want to congratulate you guys on this studio, and I
Thank
wish you
you.
both,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all of you, the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
And we, as Italian Americans around the country, owe you all a debt of gratitude for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Because even prior to this, the opening of this studio, I was watching the Italian American podcast, and you guys saved me a lot of money. I don't have to go to St. Louis. I don't have to go to New Orleans, anywhere. You guys did. All of you just
Done a lot of
combined
work.
so perfectly.
Thank
Italian communities.
But your inputs,
Thank you.
your dialogue, your analyzing of the foods and so forth, just fantastic. For
you.
people who love the Italian culture like us, I can't thank you enough and compliment you enough. And this right here, and you picked the absolute most perfect place, the Mecca of all little Italies in America.
I hope
Every
so.
time
here.
I think his idea is crazy is when he hits it out of the park.
Oh no,
So
absolutely.
when I go home and say he's lost it this time,
No,
And when
absolutely.
he got this
Save that
place,
clip,
I
Nikki. That's
said
good. I'm gonna use that
He
next
has
time.
totally lost it. When he said he was getting a place on the corner of Grand and Mulberry, I said this is that, and that's when he blows me out of the water.
Yeah.
Because he has secured the Plymouth Rock of Italian America.
Absolutely.
This is Plymouth Rock.
It is. It is.
Who
It
of you
is.
is the older brother?
Complimenting.
Who's
He's older
Yeah,
by
the
a
older-
couple of
Hated
years.
that
by
question.
how long? Sorry, well, I
Couple of years.
Only 2
I have to be
years.
polite. 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, so he's like my older brother. So oftentimes he's got to drag me in a direction. I got to drag him in a direction. I'm sure you guys experience that, but you come along. You don't go
Sure.
willingly. The
Well,
worst
I
was the
have to-
photo shoot.
But when you get me,
Yeah.
you know the thing
He
is,
comes
you
along.
know you're right because you convince me. Because
Yeah.
I'm open-minded.
You are open-minded.
You have to convince me.
But you're a lawyer. You need to be convinced thoroughly.
Yeah, I'm like Thomas. I gotta put my finger in those wounds.
But I have to tell you, your combination works so well.
Thank
We
you.
really,
It works
really like
so
each
well,
other.
and even
Providence made it happen. Not
Yeah.
the city, but God.
Federal Hill had nothing to do with it. No.
Fair Hill, we got to go film
We
that,
haven't
by the
gone
way.
there
We
yet.
haven't gone
We're
there.
gonna-
Let me know when
That's
you're there. You're only
changing
you're only an hour away from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so let me know.
that
Let us
all it
know
is?
when. Yeah, that's all it is.
I
So.
love Rhode Island.
It's easy to
Oh
go
yeah,
to
Rhode Island's
It
gorgeous.
smells like New Jersey, not in a
The
polluted
Cape.
sense.
I didn't know that.
But you can pick. There's a vibe in Rhode Island that I've only found in New Jersey.
It's what happens when we're in the majority.
Because it's all Campania.
Oh.
That's why you can smell. It's
You'd love my
It's an
pianist.
organized, like, I don't want
He's
to say the
from
word
Providence?
corruption. But I want to say the word
nice word.
corruption.
Federal
It's
Hill.
like in New Jersey we have corruption, but there's a system. It's a systematic corruption, and we'll make it happen if you play our game. And I
Right,
felt
right.
that in Rhode Island. Am I
Bravo.
right with Rhode Island?
Oh, absolutely.
You have to go. You have to kiss certain people's hands.
Former mayor,
Right,
God rest his soul, Buddy
that's
Cianci.
Buddy was
perfect
the
illustrate.
best. Buddy,
Yeah, absolutely.
I did it. I had dinner one time with Buddy Cianci. I wish there's certain times we discuss people we regret that have passed. and we
Oh,
haven't on the
absolutely.
show.
Yeah.
Buddy was a fascinating.
Oh,
individual.
absolutely.
Tell the audience, give the audience the Italian American Wikipedia simple edition on Buddy. Why is he so? Because I don't think there's a lot of people out there who probably don't know Buddy.
He was the
Cianci.
mayor that he brought Providence to
Then-
gentrify. I don't know. What the
Then he
word-
went down in
he's a-
scandal.
He had a
Scandal's a strong
complicated-
word, maybe.
No, it's appropriate.
That's right.
But also, he's in a place like New Jersey where you had to play ball.
Right, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he would not have been. If, there's certain.
He was effective in a
He
system that
loved
was probably
Providence.
yeah.
He loved and Providence loved him,
Providence loved him.
especially Italian Providence. They
You know what
my
he said
goodness.
to me? He said, "You could invite me to a confirmation. I would have gone
Yeah.
because I went to everybody's party. You could invite me over your house for your kids' communion. I went." He goes.
He was a people person.
And he loved his people. He genuinely loved his people.
Oh yeah.
Boston had a mayor just like that too, Ray Flynn, and he was best friends with Buddy Cianci, and they were mayors about the same time too.
Yeah.
But Ray Flynn was Irish roots all the way back to the homeland.
But that
Devout
goes
Catholic.
back to what I was saying earlier, Ray. Ray Flynn was your number one Italian supporter. He loved the Italian
Yeah.
culture.
He would
100%
come to our
Irish,
feast
but he loved being
every
with us.
year, and he'd be down our club singing Italian songs with all of us.
Vicino Marti was his favorite.
Really?
Oh yeah.
You think the
Because they
Irish?
were mayors who grew up with their people.
Yeah.
Not that I want to cast aspersions anywhere, but now you have, I call them governors that come in.
Yeah.
So colonial governors come in, people who lived in the city for 3 years before they decide to become mayor.
Right.
And they don't really care about the people because it's not their people.
Right.
That's
Right.
not why they were sent there.
Right.
But when you have a mayor, for better for worse, that you know when the guy loves his people.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a relation, and it doesn't mean that some guys weren't on the take, and East Coast politics. I mean, I guess the whole country was corrupt. We were more
Yeah. Right.
pronounced. But like somebody in New Jersey who was a very good guy who got caught in corruption, and my mother said it was only a tip. My mother said he did so many good things. He was just taking a tip. This is our most.
Even a dog likes a pat on the head. That's
yeah.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Do you think Boston? I'm again. I've only been to Boston 3 or 4 times in my life, and I think my view of Boston, frankly, has been filtered through a Yankee fan lens. So there's this great I'll leave that. Although I have to admit, especially since they knocked down the stadium, I love Fenway Park. It's like it's that and Wrigley's the last real baseball in America. But do you think Boston is a primarily Irish city?
Not for us.
No, not for
not
Italians.
for us at all. Everybody that it has that perception
Yeah.
nationwide.
Outside it does.
Yeah, because they South Boston, especially with the notorious Whitey Bulger and so
Yeah.
forth, and especially most recently.
But it's
And
all
St.
gentrified
Patrick's
now.
Yeah,
St.
it's
Patrick's
gentrified.
Day Parade, South Boston.
North and
So
North.
it does have a really strong Irish background. But what people love the Italian part of Boston.
Yeah.
You won't find people on Broadway in South Boston doing a passeggiata like you will in the North End.
Irish and Ireland consider Boston the most Irish city in America.
It is.
Is it still?
Still,
Well, they had a great connection with Ireland.
Yeah.
All the gun
Savannah,
running that went
Georgia
on and
is a
stuff
Yeah, that was
for the
one of the
IRA.
largest-
Forget about it.
St. Patrick's Day parades in the country.
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah,
I would
Georgia.
have known. I would have known.
Yeah.
I did a speech in Savannah, Georgia one time. It's actually kind of funny. And I got invited by a guy, one of my dad's best friends from West Point, who he served with. Unfortunately, we lost him. Uncle Nick Altamir, who was Italian-American from, I think Uncle Nick from upstate New York. But anyway, he and my dad stood very, very close. And this Italian club, when I was the president of NEF, invited me to come down to Savannah. My uncle had worked down there, blah, 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 blah. So I said yes. And it was Italian American Heritage Month, I guess. And I was the keynote speaker. And I didn't realize that in Savannah, the way that they did these events was basically all these ethnic, like post-assimilation white ethnic groups, the Irish, the Polish, the Scottish, they all came to each other's events, sent like delegations. So in order for the event to begin, they would all get up and toast each other. And so it would start with the oldest. It was like, we are the English something Heritage Foundation, 16 whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then the Scottish and the Hibernians, everybody was talking about their great lineage in this country. And this club had been started in 1976. And you could just see there was this sense of like, there were so few Italians. Right? And so I started like writing notes to myself. What am I going to say to these people? Because they were saying, since 1830, this and that and that. So I went on my phone and I pulled up the founding of Rome. And I did the calculus for however many thousands of years, and I started my speeches. I just want to get up and represent the Italian community and say, for 3,000 whatever years, we've been civilizing the rest of you. And I got a big round of applause from the Italians, not so much from the Irish, the Scottish, and the English and stuff like that. But it was interesting to see how clearly in the majority they were down there. Yeah, it was definitely an Irish town.
A lot of Irish moved to the South.
They were better treated.
They were much better treated.
They didn't have, the South did not have the anti-Catholic prejudice that New England and New York did.
That's so interesting.
So before
Yeah.
the American Civil War,
Yeah.
the Irish were better integrated because the South had New Orleans and the French.
Well, look at the
who were
Sicilians
very
in New
Catholic.
Orleans. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, there was a much better. Didn't Jefferson Davis go to a Jesuit school?
Yes, he did.
So there was a less. The Irish did better. Well, I mean, there's a lot of Irish that fought for the Confederacy.
Sure, tons.
There's tons.
Yeah.
This
It's
is the most
interesting.
eclectic episode because you cover so
I know,
many.
right?
We have so many
I know,
commonalities.
I
Like,
know,
you're the
I know.
feast singer.
I know.
There's so
Let's
many.
talk about the singing, please. That's how we met.
Another aspect, that's my passion, and I gravitated toward Italian music, Neapolitan classical music, and I dabble in with some arias. I'm a high baritone, not a sincere tenor, what they call a studio tenor, so I can do some of the material written by Puccini, not all of it, but I'm in a great, it's called a money bracket. It's a high baritone. Jerry Vale was in that bracket.
One of my favorites.
But the music, I just gravitated to the Italian music, and I've made thank God, a great living doing it.
How has it changed? I'll put it the feast singer category, right? So you know feast really well because you've gone for
I've
so many
chaired
years
them and
and
so
shared,
forth,
and
yeah.
you've sung around the country. What don't we know that you know?
Unfortunately, if you take the bulk of the people that come to a feast, be it St. Gennaro's or St. Anthony's or the Fisherman's in the North End, any festival, it's almost more so about the food.
Yeah.
Primarily Italian, but as you can see, in a lot of concessionaires over here are multi-ethnic. Even in Boston, we're seeing it too. So it's becoming almost like unfortunately, like just another. What did my cousin call him? New York City street fair.
Street fair.
In which he'll sell fried gallimatis and fried shrimp. Whereas years ago, when Ray and I used to come down in the 70s and 80s over here to St. Gennaro's, there were busloads of faithful.
Yeah.
And even in Boston, faithful going to the Fisherman's Feast, St. Anthony's Feast, coming down from Gloucester for the Madonna, for St. Gennaro, for St. Anthony, to attend the masses, to attend the procession. Today, these people don't know. They don't know what saint.
You're right.
I call them saint elsewhere.
Yeah, you're right.
Because they have no. They're clueless. They're here for. They know there's going to be food and the interesting thing about music is that when I would sing over here in the bandstand and I'd be doing Cello Luna Mezzamati, I always say that there are 3 languages in this world now I've come to know. One is love, okay? You can fall in love with someone that of a different ethnicity and not even speak the same language as that person. Just go, wow, she caught my eye. The other one is money. If you give me a stack of euro, I can't spend it here, but I'm going to keep it. I'm going to be thankful.
I know what it's doing,
And the other one is music.
Yeah.
And I'm over here singing here in the bandstand years ago, and I'm singing Cello Luna Mezzamati, and being so close to Chinatown, the proximity to Chinatown, the audience was, on that particular afternoon, was primarily Chinese, and they're all getting into...
Yeah.
And I'm singing Cello Luna Mezzamati, going, they're clapping along. The beats move them.
Yes, that's true.
So those are 3 things that are so interchangeable within the various ethnicities.
Even think about Italian Americans who don't know what they're singing about with these lyrics. We talk about this on a lot of shows. Like Cello Luna is a frisky song, right?
Right.
But people don't know because it's been passed down phonetically.
Right.
But it moves you, and you.
It's the beats.
It's the beats,
It was
and
all
it's
over
the
Instagram. I mean, think of how many. I would watch so many things around the world. Had the Louis Prima singing that.
That's funny.
In the last year or two, and like someone was like, "You have no idea what those words are." 'Cause you would not be prepared.
right.
If you knew what he was saying in that song, what he was referring to,
That's right.
Oh yeah.
you would not be.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. A lot of the background did not meet. I'm like, better you don't know, but you had people everywhere, Brazil and China, Arab countries,
isn't it amazing?
As the background music, and it was such a hot song.
Yeah. it's
Yeah,
wild.
it transcends ethnicities. It's amazing.
That's the one thing the Italian stuff has going for it. It transcends ethnicities.
Yeah, with the food also.
The food, too.
Yeah, food, and I want to get back to the food if I may for a second. Talk about foods that aren't on the menus anymore that have since been put to the side as those generations have passed on. Capazel.
Oh,
And
God.
I heard you guys. I saw your program on Capazel, and I stopped by. I had it in Rome one time. First of all, the whole goat's head right down the buck teeth and like that. And
Can I just tell our listeners so you have a visual?
Okay,
It's a-
We'll
it's
put it on. We could get a picture.
It's
Yeah.
a skull of a sheep or a goat cut in half. And
yeah. And that the whole half a head comes right to your plate.
Yes.
So I had it at Rome. I thought it was going to be brave. And I had it in a trattoria in Rome. And I just dabbled around with it, and I really didn't go near it and stuff. I really turned into an Irish American real
that was
quick.
the Irish in you now.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, I wouldn't be eating
Yeah,
that.
I
no.
said I thought
if
I
I was
could-
starving, sure, I wouldn't be eating that. No.
I thought I could dive into the deep end, and I couldn't. So
I love all this stuff.
I
do
hadn't
too.
really touched it, and I gave it to the waiters, and they were like, "Oh,
I'll tell you what, I love that stuff. That's his big brother influence on me. I eat all that stuff. I ate it as a kid too. Except Capuzzel, my grandfather had a bad heart, so by the time I was able to kind of get onto these things, we'd cut a lot of that out.
Capuzel's
But-
a health food. No, it really is. It has
Yeah, but-
protein.
Yes.
And it has
But
collagen.
brain's not good for you anymore, they say. Anyway, my
Oh,
point
really?
is,
Wow.
my grandfather wasn't having that
Well,
stuff.
some people could use more brain.
You're not kidding. My father-in-law's my doctor. He always yells at me. He's like, you could eat everything you want. Don't eat brains. He tells me all the time. But my grandfather's brothers, when he passed, he had 4 brothers left. And my brother and I were particularly close to one of our great uncles. And we would go there, and he would tell us stories about how they made stuff. And he would tell us about when they were kids, him and my grandfather and their other brothers, how they would make a capuzzel, and 7 brothers, 2 eyeballs, and they'd fight over who got the eye. And he was recalling it so fondly. So I was living on Arthur Avenue at the time, and I said, Uncle Eddie, Michael and I we'll make one with you. So I went. I got the head. I didn't know how to order it, so I didn't realize I had to cut it in half. And then I had to cut it in half. I had to get a saw from like the construction.
Wow.
It was a whole thing, but we made it. and we had such a great time with him. And the only part that I really couldn't was the eyeball. I just the brain delicious, the tongue, the eyeball was a step too far.
I have a quick story.
Yeah.
We've got to go back to Sicily for this.
Yeah,
And Jimmy and I spent the month of February in Sicily one year.
that's nice.
And with our good friend John Primo. He's passed away since. Anyways, the mayor of the town took us out to dinner. But we were there for a month. So he said to us, you know what? We had to get a calendar because all our relatives were all fighting over who's going to take you out to dinner
That's
or
wonderful.
have you for dinner. And
Good
so,
problems.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
problem.
exactly.
problems,
Yeah.
But so we got a calendar and we just put it in our social calendar. You know, long story short, the mayor calls us up. We had just come back from a 2:00 feeding. You know, we were stuffed to the gills, and he calls us up and he says, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "Digesting." You know, so he says, "You got to join us at our club." I said, "What kind of club?" "Well, we go hunting."
Wow.
in
Hunting
Sicily.
is so popular.
I just bought a book about hunting in
don't
Sicily. 'cause
want to
I hunt.
He says, "No, we already went hunting. You're going to join us tonight." Okay. Sends a car for us, picks us up, takes us into the backwoods of Sicily and Shaka. There were no lights on the street or anything. We're saying, "Are we
Did we do
safe?"
something wrong?
You know? But we felt very safe.
Uh-oh.
No, he was a good friend of ours. And we go there, and we know all these guys. They were all locals from Shaka. And they had gone hunting with the mayor, and they didn't tell us what they went hunting for. But they're cooking this big pot of gravy, and we call it gravy.
Huge
There's
pot,
meat in
huge
it. There's
pot.
That's
gravy and
interesting.
tomatoes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So-
It's gravy.
He opens up the lid, and he's got a big paddle, and they're making a wild boar, and it's just the head because you could see the tusks.
Wow, that's
And,
intense.
yeah, oh yeah. So I knew what it was, and I said, "I want to try this. I've never had boar before,
Yeah.
you know." So they make the macaroni. It's a big rigatoni they used, and the gravy was the sweetest.
Oh, had to be the most
ever
delicious
eaten.
thing.
Naturally sweet.
Absolutely delicious.
There's the key
And now
naturally
they cut up all the meat from the head and everything, and on my plate they give me the eyeball.
It's the honor. That's the piece of honor. It really is.
It
right?
really was. And I'm sitting next to the mayor, and he says, "No, you're the honored guest. You have to eat it." And I said, "People, I really, I really couldn't."
cholesterol pills or
You know,
any excuse. you
yeah,
can
I
make.
used every excuse, and then I finally said, "I'm allergic to it." You know, he looked at me. He said, "Okay." He gets it and pops it in his
Oh,
mouth,
yeah. That's like the great honor.
and I could hear the squish. I'm saying, "Oh my god!" So my friend Johnny's sitting next to me, and he started laughing. He says, "Oh my god!" And he's over there eating, chewing, and he goes, he's laughing hysterically. I said, "What's so funny?" You know, I'm trying to get out of this, and he says, he wanted you to eat the eyeball. So what are you laughing at? You're eating the ear. And he had no clue what he goes,
the ear
"Oh,
is
it's
good. though.
delicious.
The ear is delicious. Yeah, we like. We eat
But
a
it was
lot of
the
ear.
funniest
Haven't we?
story because, we look at things differently. But the gravy was absolutely
That stuff makes
spectacular.
so much taste when you cook
Oh
with
my
it.
God.
Oh, it does.
I mean, we go to the thing in New Jersey, the Tripe Night for the Italian Tribune paper.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't
I love tripe.
come down next year, it's June. It's usually right around my
Okay.
grandma's birthday, middle of June. And they make 5 or 6 different kinds. It's like an amazing
Really?
tradition.
Oh,
Hundreds
that's
of people
great.
come now.
Best thing is the calabrese braciole with the
Oh
breadcrumbs.
my goodness, though!
I
and
never
then they
had
make it in the neck
braciole like their
bones.
braciole.
Oh,
Really?
goodness!
Well,
Breadcrumbs.
my mother used to make
Oh,
it
you
with
stuffed them? We
breadcrumbs.
never did that. I was
With the
never.
braciole? You never stuffed them?
No, not with breadcrumbs.
What else was in the stuffing?
Grated cheese,
Raisins,
grated cheese bars,
pinoles?
I can't eat the pinoles.
Oh, he
but
can't eat the
raisins.
pinoles.
Okay.
The raisins
How about
make it so
hard-boiled
sweet,
eggs?
so
No, I never. We
My
didn't do
grandfather's
hard-boiled
Sicilian
eggs.
family
Oh,
makes
yeah.
hard-boiled eggs. Yes.
Hard-boiled eggs are a staple in Sicily.
So I went to my grandparents' house last weekend for my birthday, and my grandmother's 87. That they're in their late 80s. Grandpa's 88. They're the most. I mean, Pat's eating up there. They're the most dynamic people, but they don't eat a full gravy anymore because it's just the two of them, my uncle and my aunt. So it was like a big deal that my grandmother was making gravy for everybody. And the tradition in my family has always been she makes braciole, but she makes one Sicilian braciole for my Sicilian grandfather, and it's got an egg in it, and that's his, and everybody knows it. And if a guest comes, there's no hard, fast rule, leave that alone, but he's got to get it first because that is his Brejol. It's Sicilian style. She's been making it for him since they got married. As a matter of fact, yesterday was their 68th wedding anniversary.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, if they see this clip, congratulations to my grandparents.
Auguri.
68 years together, yeah.
Do they watch us?
Yeah, I think so. I bought my grandfather an Apple TV. It's like changed because they're in the mountains up in the Catskills. Changed his whole life. He watches all kinds of stuff. My grandmother learned through YouTube on the Apple TV how to fix her washing machine. She did it herself.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Wow. God bless her.
Fix
Wow.
so anyway, that we have egg in the Brejol only for my grandfather,
Sicilian.
but that's
Oh.
the Sicilian
I
side.
don't like hard-boiled eggs in general.
I'm not
I don't
a
like
huge
that
hard
smell.
boiled. Yeah,
That
Sulfur,
smell.
yeah.
yeah.
Can I give you one quick eyeball story again?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
Being Sicilian, but not only being Sicilian, but coming from a fishing village of Shaka, we were brought up with fish. And my grandfather and all my my maternal grandfather and all my uncles and cousins were all fishermen, commercial fishermen in Boston. And so we had the best of everything as far as fish goes. You know, lobsters like crazy, haddock,
Fish is my
fresh
favorite
haddock,
thing in the world.
whiting, merluzzo.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
Forget about it. We were brought up on all that 5 days a week. So my grandmother would have this big cod, fresh cod that her son, my uncle, would bring her, and Phyllis and I, my sister Phyllis and I, would be should be taking care of us, and it was should be prepping that evening's dinner, and she'd cut clean the whole codfish, big cod I'm talking about, and she'd give us the eyeballs to play with. So we would go out with all our friends as little kids, and we'd go, "How you doing?" You know, put an eyeball.
You know, when you cook them, they turn out like marbles. You notice when you cook a fish, like the whole head, and you pull it's like a marble. You could play marble. It's as hard as a rock. I don't know how people eat them and enjoy them.
I know it. We never ate them. My grandmother would give us them to just have fun with. But
It's just like
You
a
used
toy.
to chase the girls and show them
There you go.
the eyeballs.
Is the fish as good now? Do you have because my thing now is because the world has changed. You're probably getting cod now.
My goodness.
Coming from a million
Peru.
miles away. Can you
Pat-
still get fresh?
you
Massachusetts?
You have
can.
to know where to shop.
I don't know who I told. It may have been Brendan when you guys came up to Boston. I went on one fishing trip with my cousin, who was the last commercial fisherman in the Madonna del Soccorso
That's
di
amazing.
Sciacca Society, the Fisherman's Club in Boston. And I said to him, before you retire, Ray, he was about to retire, I said, I want to make one trip with you just for the experience. So I had back then a video camera, I had my video camera. We're talking early 90s.
Wow.
And I had my still camera and so forth. And I was so disappointed and depressed when they would what they call it, dragging the net for 4 hours, and they would pull up the catch, and there'd be like just a minimal fish. You know, they'd pick up a lot of junk like old tire rims and stuff, and I'd say, what a disgrace. And finally we started catching some fish, and he'd have to move around to different areas, but that was never the case when my grandfather used to fish. We were scheduled for a 13-day trip. Thank God something broke and we came back after 5 days, because I had enough. I had enough. I said, when I got back to land, I said, everybody who enjoys a piece of fish should stop and thank a fisherman, say a prayer for a fisherman, because it's like one of the world's worst and dirty occupations. And when it's really cold up in Boston, it's so, even here in New York, it's so difficult. And then in the summertime, it's bloody hot, you know, and then the conditions are so bad. It's so dangerous. But I forget what I was going with the story.
Were they overfished?
The seafood was overfished.
Yeah, they overfished it. Okay, what happened was these huge Japanese and Russian factory ships came in to our area. Georges Banks off of Boston were the richest fishing grounds in the world.
Wow.
They caught wind of it. They came over, and they had like 300 people on a ship. It was a whole factory ship. Wow. They do from A to Z, and they had all frozen storage on there. And they would go out for months and go back to Japan and Russia. And by the time we got implemented a 200-mile limit that they couldn't come within our fishing grounds, it was too late. They already depleted the resources. And
Well, here's the good part. It's no longer depleted. There's an abundance of fish. And that's why if you go to Cape Cod in the summertime, you have more sightings of great white sharks because
the fish are so...
seals. No, because the seals are having a feast
Oh, my
on all the
goodness.
fish. and the great white sharks
Want the seals?
want the seals. So so many wheels
Yeah, we
in
never
the
we
water.
never had great
we
white
never
sharks
had-
before.
No.
That's
so
why
many
these sharks.
sightings.
I asked myself, why are these sharks coming around?
Yeah, that's why.
Because the fish are being
But
restored.
the fishermen are still being punished by the government with quotas and everything, that they can't take advantage of all this fish. They're limited on their catch. They're limited in the grounds. The Boston fishing industry is pretty much dead.
Let's talk about that because as we draw to a close on our time together, which, by the way, you guys come back anytime. This is great. I love these kind of conversations.
Oh my
And,
goodness,
both
I could go
the
on
wealth
and
of
on and on and
resources.
on.
But it's called the Fisherman's Feast.
Yeah.
That's where your family was involved.
Shaka's a fishing town
Shaka's a fishing
in
town.
Sicily, and pretty much all of our originators of the society, my grandfather was one of them, all the founders of the society were fishermen.
From Shaka.
From Shaka.
Shaka,
And
yeah.
Our
You had to
Lady-
for the longest time, you had to be a member.
You had to be a member.
You had to be you had to be from Shaka or from a family from Shaka to become a member.
And then a lot of societies still like that. Our society from Sansa still like that. You have to be
But Madonna Soccorso is the patroness of the
Shaka.
fishermen.
Of the fishermen only.
No, she's the patroness of the city of Shaka. The patron saint of Shaka is Saint Calogero.
Uh-huh.
However, the Madonna is not a saint.
Right.
She's the mother of God.
She's the protectress.
So yes, so
like Sansa.
Exactly.
But wasn't San Calogero from Shaka?
No, Saint Calogero was from
What?
Turkey.
Where was somebody?
There were 7 Saint Calogeros.
Oh, there's 7 San Calogero.
And they were missionaries from Turkey, and they went. They actually got shipwrecked, and landed in Sicily. I guess they were going to France, from what I understand, and they got shipwrecked, landed in Sicily, and they said, "There's 7 of us. Let's all take a section of Sicily." One went to Lampedusa, one went to Agrigento, one went to Shaka. They all had the name Calogero. That wasn't their name, but that was what the people called them.
Wow.
So each city had a patron.
They brought Christianity to
They
Sicily.
were like the St. Patrick of
That's wild.
Sicily.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this.
Now, you had a San Calogero feast also in Boston.
It ended in 1939.
You know what's funny, Pat? We have photos of before we had our club that you saw for the Madonna del Soccorso Society. Before we had that built, we would house our Madonna next to St. Calogero. And now the opposite has happened, where St. Calogero Society is now defunct.
Wow.
And they sold the building and so forth, and we took St. Calogero, and so the reversal has happened.
That's beautiful, though. in a
Because
way.
Oh,
Elizabeth
yeah.
Street, where you had also, because a lot
Yeah,
of Shakatani
same
here,
thing.
Exactly.
you had a feast for Madonna Soccorso.
Mm-hmm.
They also had for San Calogero as well, right? They had both statues in the clubhouse.
Exactly.
If I remember, I actually remember
They
that
had
being
the
open.
Feast of
That was
Madonna del
Elizabeth Street,
Soccorso
right?
on
Elizabeth
Elizabeth Street. The statue of Madonna del Soccorso on Elizabeth Street was probably the first statue of Madonna del Soccorso in the United States.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
now it's in Most Precious Blood Church.
How about the club in Brooklyn?
Later.
Much
It was
later.
in- it
And
was
And then
in
you
the
have
Shaka
Norristown.
Club.
Also, Norristown.
Norristown
has
is
the feast
1902.
of-
They're older than Boston.
Oh, they are older
Yeah.
than Boston.
But see, here's the story. Most of the immigrants from Shaka came through Ellis Island, and they'd have, if you look at the rosters, and I've got my grandfathers and grandmothers rosters, they would, you'd see on their destination, the location was Ellis Island. Now you had to write down where you were
Right,
going from there.
right.
A lot of them went to Norristown. Most of the rest, and the majority of them, went to Elizabeth Street, New York. And they had to have a relative sign for them.
Right.
So they had an uncle, and so Elizabeth Street was loaded with Shakadani.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were fishermen, because that's one of the major industries, if not the major industry at the time in Shaka. And this was the turn of the century. So within 5-10 years, a lot of them started moving to Boston because they heard about the fishing industry in Boston,
Right.
and that's where they moved to. They moved to the North End because it was an Italian community. Most of the North End the North End started first as the ghetto for the blacks from Beacon Hill. They were yes. Massachusetts tries to hide this history, but they had slaves too in Boston.
Of course, yeah.
And this was
As did New York, yeah.
pre-colonial time.
Yeah.
The Boston Brahmins were famous. They'll be the first ones saying anti-slavery, and to their credit, they were one of the originators of the anti-slavery movement, but they were also one of the original owners of slaves in America before it became the United States. And they kept their slaves in the North End.
Wow.
That was the community because they lived on Beacon Hill.
Right.
And it was a much
Tonier area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the slaves eventually moved out of that area because Boston ended slavery fairly early.
Right.
So they lost their jobs, really.
Right.
And in certain sections of the North End, it became Jewish. You'll still see in parts of Salem Street some of the old signs that are in Yiddish.
Wow.
And for the most part, the North End was Irish. Honey Fitzgerald, the father-in-law of the father of Rose Kennedy,
Right, John Kennedy's grandfather.
Kennedy's grandfather, he was born in the North End. Rose Kennedy was born in the North End, right across from Sacred Heart Church on Garden Court. And for the longest time, the North End was predominantly Irish. Turn of the century, the Italians started moving in. And the Irish moved to Charlestown, moved to South Boston, moved to Brighton. Brighton was a big community, Allston, Brighton, big Irish section of Boston. So the Irish moved out and the Italians moved in. They've kept the neighborhood the longest.
Yeah.
And they gave it the flavor. And everybody knows it now as the Italian North End, the Italian Little Italy of Boston. The area's changing still, but it still has the Italian flavor.
And you guys, as the Fisherman Feast, sort of a later arrivals then, right? You said...
Well, no, we started in 1910 as a society.
That's
the fishermen moved in, but a lot of the members of the founders of the Fisherman's Feast of Boston were members here on Elizabeth Street.
That's I guess what I was getting at.
So the feast was going
migrating
on
up
here in Elizabeth Street. We took that tradition to Boston. Well, from Shaka originally.
Right.
So they were all from Shaka.
Right.
So they wanted to continue their devotion to the Madonna. They couldn't come back and forth to Elizabeth Street every year, So that's what they would do. Their livelihood was in Boston. They started their own feast.
And now the Fisherman's Feast now, you guys, I've never been. I wanted to go this year. I couldn't make it. I watched the procession videos. Obviously, we have Pat's coming out, and we have plenty of footage for Nikki to show. But tell us what makes it unique, because it's quite a unique feast.
The Flight of the Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that we still do this piece of religious street theater, if you will.
Because a lot of our viewers wouldn't have a familiarity with it. So in the south of Italy, in a lot of places, not just Sicily, Campania had it as well, you got to see it to believe it. So they have a child. Why don't you describe what it is?
Well, at the conclusion of the Madonna's procession throughout the streets of the North End, she's welcomed back into the feast area, into the Shakadani area. And there are two girls dressed as little angels on each balcony, and they recite a litany of prayers in praise of the Madonna and in honor of the Madonna in Italian. It used to be interestingly, it used to be in Sicilian dialect. And they changed it because nobody could understand it. So they changed it into Italian. I know. I know it.
Oh no!
I agree. A lot of the old timers were mad.
I would be too. Yeah.
These two angels recite a prayer, a litany of prayers, and at the conclusion of they say
that was some know-it-all. That's one of those. I talk about an episode. Every Italian, I went to school. They went to 4 years of school, and then they told everybody what to do. You really shouldn't have it in Sicilian.
Yeah,
you really.
Yeah.
And then this clown becomes the one who dominates conversation.
That's how it goes.
I know the person who changed it.
Yeah.
And
am I right?
In fairness to him, no, he's a friend of mine.
He's alive.
In fairness, yeah.
It's only happened in the.
It happened in the 60s. But one of the things. No, it was the early 60s. Because Patty was one of the last angels to do it in dialect.
Oh, really?
When his name was also, I'm not even going to say.
Yeah, no, he said.
But nonetheless,
when
he changed it, there was still a lot of old paisani in the audience for the angel.
Who couldn't speak Italian themselves. They only spoke Sicilian.
Right,
exactly. They spoke the dialect, and they were saying,
Pat.
What's going on here? Who changed the prayer?
Yeah.
Where are you?
You could get lynched.
Lynch me out of it.
But here's you know,
This is why I got
Pat
aggravated.
O'Boyle, the advocate for the Sicilian
40 years
language.
Do you ever think that would happen?
Nope, there you go.
40 years later, is it 40, 50,
Yeah,
whatever?
whatever it is, 50 something.
Nowadays, the audience doesn't even understand the
speak
Italian.
That's very true.
Oh, yeah.
You're
They
right.
don't. They're listening and they're saying we had to translate the Italian prayer in our pamphlets
Yeah.
to English.
Sure.
So because a lot of people wanted to know what are the girls saying.
It might as well be in
Redeem
Greek at
yourself.
this point.
Nameless one. Redeem yourself. You got to do it in
Do
Sicilian.
we know the prayers in Sicilian still? Are they written somewhere?
You know, it's funny.
You know,
This is a
Do they
quest
do Silly
we could go
Shaka,
on.
the angels?
they never did it. They never did. It's an American
Elizabeth Street tradition.
It's kind of like
we
chicken
got
palm.
it from Elizabeth.
It's a chicken parm feast.
Yeah,
We got to find what these prayers are.
I know it.
Well, you know,
He
Getting-
probably burnt them. We're gonna burn them.
Getting back to
Oh,
the
it could
actual
be true.
ceremony.
Yeah,
Getting back to the actual
I'm
ceremony.
gonna have a heart attack.
At the
I'm gonna
conclusion,
drop this in my last episode. I always have to get aggravated.
tranquille,
If the
tranquille.
prayers had started in Neapolitan and been converted, he'd be dead already. He would be under the table. He would.
No, I'm fair.
No, you're fair,
I'm very
but you're
kind
taking it
Sicilian.
more
No,
personally.
he's all about
It's the
ethnicity,
Irish
which is
coming out.
great.
Yeah, that's right.
he's being very
No,
dramatic now.
not true, man. It aggravates me. Why do you have to go and touch things?
If he wasn't a teetotaler, he'd be drinking right now.
I'm like, oh,
True. He
I'm
gets
gonna cry.
A third angel comes out of a window, a third-story window, and she descends down to the statue of the Madonna and is hoisted down by the block and tackle system erected by the fishermen.
Wow.
And she again recites another litany of prayers. And at the conclusion of her prayers, she says, "Viva I discendenti di Shaka, the descendants of Shaka. Viva la società marittima. Long live the Fishermen's Society. Viva e viva Maria, Madre del Soccorso. Viva Our Lady of Help." And I have to say, when we had the honor of a few busloads from the Shaka Social Club, which you mentioned earlier, from Bensonhurst, when they heard those words, I was looking at all of them, and they were right there in the middle of it all, and there were tears. There wasn't a dry eye in the whole place. Here they are missing their homeland town of Shaka, and they're hearing these little girls saying, "Viva I discendenti di Shaka, viva la società marittima, viva e viva Maria, Madre del Soccorso." And at that point, all confetti is thrown off the rooftops. The bands are playing, and there's merriment everywhere.
So they
It's
don't
great.
do the angels in Norristown.
No, they don't.
I have a theory.
Well, I'll tell you.
Oh, you know why they picked up the angels?
Yes, because the people who came to Ellis Island, their destination was Norristown. This
Right.
wasn't a Shaka tradition. So they went from Ellis Island to Norristown. That's what their next...
Right.
The others who came, who eventually ended up in Boston, went to Elizabeth Street. This is an Elizabeth Street tradition right here. around
They
the
used to
corner.
have it over
Somebody
here
else
years
must
ago.
have had the angels.
They had the angel.
Yeah,
here
There
on
must have been another
Elizabeth Street.
society that they copied it off of. Because how would they have thought? You know, in Patterson, New Jersey had angels.
Yeah, and
Newark had angels.
Chicago has it.
Rosalia's Feast had angels.
Chicago still has it.
Yeah.
St. Rosalie in Brooklyn had angels?
Yeah.
I don't know
Somewhere
which
in
location.
Massachusetts,
You
Rhode
watch
Island.
the movie
Cranston?
Pay or Die?
Somebody has it.
With
Newton.
No, I've never
has
seen
it.
it. Pay or
Elizabeth's
die?
mother.
This is the greatest moment.
Pay or Die, Ernest Borgnine, Pay or Die. The movie opens up with the Flight of the Angels ceremony in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah, at St. Rosalia's Feast.
We got to clip that
Campania.
if we could
There
get
was
a
lot of it in
30-second clip
Campania.
on here without.
Because they would have in Italy, it was called Opera Sacra, right? So before television and electric lights and everything else, the feast was the big time of entertainment of a very kind of dreary existence at times.
Mm-hmm.
So they would put on theatrical stuff,
Right,
plays
right.
and stuff like that. So they would have these machinas. Spain does the same thing,
Yeah,
where they would have, they call them machines, but they would have theatrical stuff like the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. They'd have a lift that would bring a woman up on a tier, and they'd have fake clouds. So the idea was like, it was like a theater almost, right? We gotta find. This is the two greatest. I say moments. This is the second. It's tied. It's not the second numerically. It's tied. We had a gentleman on early on who told us where Prince Spaghetti Wednesday night came from.
That's a lost
Absolutely.
episode, by the way.
North End.
Boston's
You know what?
No,
No,
right around the
but
corner.
the slogan.
Do you know where the slogan came from? The guy who owned Prince Spaghetti used to hang out with the guy who owned DeNobili Cigars.
Okay.
And the guy who owned DeNobili, tell me, jog my memory if it's wrong.
Yeah, go.
They were hanging out because I guess they were the only Italian millionaires at the time. And country clubs wouldn't let them in. And they became friendly. And the guy from DeNobili's, the guy from Prince Spaghetti, said to him, because the grandson, who was in his 80s, in his late 80s, was there. It was like a little kid running around. So the grandfather, so the guy from Prince Spaghetti said, I want to build up my sales. I gotta, they were
It was
talking about
Perotti
marketing.
cigars back then.
Perotti.
It was the family.
Perotti.
Now they own Denobli,
I'm
but
sorry,
they were Perotti in Scranton.
And the gentleman from Perotti said to his friend, who was the guy from Prince Spaghetti, goes, you need like what was that, a motto?
Slogan.
A slogan, like Wednesday's Prince Spaghetti night. And he said, that's a great idea. So we have the guy recorded who said that this was what happened.
Yeah.
And it's the Perotti grandson.
Wow. I never.
And
heard
this
that.
is the second thing. Both came out of Boston. I had no idea. I just assumed that the Flight of the Angels also happened in
Shaka.
Shaka. There had to be another society that had it in New York, and they said, I'm going to...
This is the mystery we got to get to.
Oh, shucks. This is the most emotionally overwhelming episode we've ever had. I got the language shock. This is shocking.
I'm
You
gonna
have to
give you.
find
I'm gonna
out.
give you a little Neapolitan language shock.
Yeah.
When I was learning all these Neapolitan songs because I love them, I learned the song "Torna Sorrento." I learned it in proper Italian, and I'm singing it. Some lady comes up to me. You need to say it in Neapolitan dialect. I said, really? Okay, so I learned the Neapolitan. Another lady comes up to me and says, you need to sing it in
Italian
Italian.
people stink.
Of course.
No matter what you do, they're never happy. You
I said, I'm gonna sing it in English. How's that?
Yeah, exactly. You should. Doesn't Elvis do it in English?
Yeah, Elvis did it in
My
English.
grandfather's favorite song. Well, you guys are a blast. I really look forward to seeing you. I hope, are you both
I
coming?
don't drink, but I need one after.
Should be alone?
This is a lot today.
He's working.
He's working.
I'll be here singing all
I'll
these
probably
songs.
be here one of the days at least.
You
Come
like the
and visit.
Windsors.
We're going to have the booth.
They have many titles. They're royalty in Boston's North End. They're royalty in Shaka. You just sung the Ave Maria at the Feast in Shaka, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the highest honor they can
Yeah,
give you.
it was great.
Is to ask you to come in.
That's
It was
true.
great.
Everybody knows you in the New York area because you sing here.
Yeah.
So you have multiple titles. How are you going to title this one? There's many crowns
We're
that they
gonna
wear.
have to- so we're going to have to figure that one out.
Like
That's
the
it.
Duke of Windsor. They have all those titles. The Baron of this, Count of that.
It's just so much fun. The Italian culture encompasses so much.
Yeah.
And it's just
We
so
gotta
rich.
find out
It's
what
so
that prayer is.
rich.
I'm not going to sleep now.
He's gonna
Because I'm
be-
crazy.
All right, we're going to work on this. We're gonna seek out where this comes from, where the first Flight of the Angels happens, and I'm going to find this movie too. Pay Your Die. I want to see it in
Pay Your Die.
the 50s too.
Dennis
That's really
Borgnine.
that's fascinating to me. So I think anytime you can, please come back. We'd love
Oh,
to
our
have you.
pleasure.
You're always
It's a
welcome
great honor.
here.
You're a
Yeah.
great support of the podcast and everything we've done.
Thank you.
And your kind words and encouragement have meant the world to us. And we're very, very, it's an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And again, we wish you the best of success and continued success with
Thank
the
you.
Thank
podcast,
you.
but the best of success with this new studio and so forth.
Thank
And I think that you nailed it. You're at the intersection of Mulberry and Grand in the first. I think the first little Italy in the United States.
One of 'em,
So hello,
For sure.
You know,
definitely.
you can't get any better than this.
Can't get better than
Uh,
it. God
know-
bless you, John. You out there
We
yourself.
made the right real
Yeah,
estate
you
decision.
really
Now let's see if we can
absolutely.
turn it into a successful
Absolutely.
business. That'll be the next task for sure.
We need a
Goodness.
picture of you in the window. A cartoon
You
of
want the eyes? The chandelier will fall. We got so many eyes. If I had that, that's all we need. Pictures of us. We had enough eyes today. It's been a very long day around
Got to
here.
take the Yankees cap off.
Yeah, I know. If I had taped it like we taped the water bottles, I should have done that. But no, I can't betray my Yankees. Although you got a great ballpark in Boston.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. I have to say, I had a dear friend who has since passed away, and he invited me to a Yankees game, and for some reason, it just felt Yankee Stadium felt so Italian.
really,
Yeah, I felt so Italian to me. There was
the
Mike's
old stadium or the new
the old
stadium? The old stadium was more
there,
Italian.
There was Mike's Deli there.
My
I said,
man,
"Wow,
my
I
friend
could get
David
I could
Greco.
get a
Yep.
sub over here." And then I brought him to Fenway Park. He loved it over
Fenway
there.
Park's
It's
amazing.
just great. It's just
I
great.
did give him a Red Sox hat, but he didn't.
I couldn't. I mean, I could do a lot of things. I really could. You give me a Feast T-shirt, I wear. But if it had that B on it,
I'm a big
See you.
Butana. I'll wear anybody's hat if you feed me.
You're not a Yankee
So, I
fan,
don't
though. To be
care,
fair.
man.
If it came with the
You're
plate of
gonna feed
Babalucci,
me.
beef
If
and
I had a
Babalucci,
couple
he'd
sell,
eat it.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. You mentioned the Mets, and I have to say something. When the only time I ever saw the Yankees fan root for the Mets was when they played the Red Sox
Absolutely,
in the World
yeah.
Series.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know, because you guys have a rivalry, right? And you talk about Italian
They
cities
do. We
fighting.
have nothing. Jersey has no. I have no. I have no.
He's got
dog
no
in
side
their
in
fight.
either of them. It's a Yankee Mets thing.
It's a Brooklyn
But the-
Manhattan thing.
Sort of, yeah. A lot of the leftover Brooklyn Dodger fans, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island became Mets fans for sure, and Jets fans. Yankees, it was sort of
Both
Manhattan.
teams could play in New Jersey and they'd still be the New York team. The
Yeah.
Giants are in
Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they should be forced.
They almost did
declare.
force them to do that.
You
yeah.
should call yourself. That was a Chris Christie. That was an Italian movie.
I have
that was a Sicilian movie.
That's absolutely right. I have a pennant from when the Giants moved to New Jersey, whatever year, where they toyed with becoming the New Jersey Giants, and I have one of like the few pennants where the NY
Wow.
logo has been changed to an NJ.
Wow.
I should get it for you, actually. That'd
Thank
be a nice
you.
little touch. Not that you're a Giants fan, but we should have it in here. But honestly, though, I love Boston, and
Boston loves
I love
New York,
you guys.
too.
Yeah, it's good to have rivals, right?
It's an Italian thing, though. I have to say, it's an Italian thing.
We are like extraterritorial. I always love Italians from wherever
Same
wherever
here.
I meet them.
Same
That's why we
here.
love traveling through the country. Italian America,
You know,
Absolutely.
my father was Irish. He was an avid Red Sox fan. Our biggest regret is he had to wait. He never got to see the
wow,
winner
think about
pennant
that.
in all his years. They won afterwards, and we had Larry Lucchino at the
Sure, yeah,
feast.
president
he
of
brought
the
the
Red
trophy
Sox,
down
yeah.
and everything, because he came to the Fisherman's Feast. It was a big deal, and that was everybody who was there was going up to him. I only wish my father was here to see this.
Yeah.
He was such a
It was
fan.
a
I had
big
my
generational
friend
thing.
call me. His mother, she was about 80 years old at the time. He called me up, Ray, what time's Larry Lucchino going to the feast?
Yeah.
He goes, I can't bring my mother in anymore, but I want to bring her in to see the trophy and take a picture with her. I said, come in the side, I'll get you in the back, you take a picture with it, It's just that emotional. The Red Sox really pull at your heartstrings.
religion.
Because, when someone fails you so many
Yes.
times, there's almost like a love out of pity.
That's very true. Yeah.
And then they started winning everything, and people from New York, you guys turned on your Yankees so
yeah, we
fast.
do. Oh, we're the worst. We're the worst
my
fans in the
God.
world. Yeah, we are because we're so used to winning. We're
This
horrible.
year, yeah,
Exactly.
I'm a horrible fan.
But
My wife tells me that all the
here's
time.
the secret with Boston, though. We had so many kids from all over the country going to Boston schools. They became avid Red Sox fans.
It's true. Yeah.
And because it was a cheap ticket,
Yeah.
they weren't necessarily winning, but you had
And
it.
it's
you spent
charming.
The day,
You know,
it's
it's
a
fun.
great park to visit.
Baseball's supposed to
It's
be-
a throwback to history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they became avid Red Sox
Look at the
fans.
Cubs.
So we became Red
yeah,
Sox
exactly.
Nation.
Yeah, look at the Cubs, same thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful little bandbox, like baseball's supposed to be played. Teams that had very poor track records of success up until recently, right? I mean, Red Sox have done better than the poor Cubbies, but in major American metropolises, and yeah, we Yankee fans, it's New York. He always says New York has a centric sense of the world, and that we kind of like look in our own belly buttons and think same as Boston, right? It'd be
No.
how we look at Boston.
Yes,
it would be
yes,
hard
yes,
pressed to
correct,
find a New
correct.
Yorker who doesn't think, well, San Gennaro is the best feast in the world. They don't even know there are feasts in Boston because we kind of look inward.
Yeah.
And we're the same with our sports, The Yankees
Exactly.
127. I mean, I am horrible Yankee. My wife thinks I'm absolutely the worst sports fan in the world because I abandon the ship quickly, and then as soon as the playoffs come around, which God willing, a month from now they will, and I'll be right back on the bandwagon, and I'll be at the stadium, and you get more from difficulty in losing, and frankly, that's a lot of our culture here. The harder the circumstances were for our people coming here, the more that the trappings of our food, our culture, our feasts, our music become a security blanket.
Oh, absolutely.
And you cling to them more, and they become far more important. And hopefully everybody out there agrees that these are the important touchstones of who we are. Hopefully you're going to come out for San Gennaro next week. Jimmy's going to be here singing for a couple of the days, right? The weekends.
The
and
2 weekends.
And 2 of the
Yep.
weekends. And if not, I missed it this year when Pat got to go. And I hope you guys follow along on YouTube and check out his postcards from the feast. But I will desperately do everything I can to get there next year. And hopefully we see you guys again. And some of the audience out there comes and joins us.
We plan on going to Sicily in February. So.
That's the best of the best. Maybe I can make that one
You
happen.
want to see the best feast in the world,
I
trust
can
me.
believe it, yeah.
It's incredible.
Nothing like the Mother Island, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have been a blast. Thank you for coming in. And thank you guys out there for staying with us all this time. It's been a wonderful episode. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
That you're born in Italian. If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born an Italiano.